Continuing on my quest to cover the meta decks for this throwback rotation, today we're gonna be playing some NAM or NAM or Machina Natura Dragon, whatever you want to call it. It's pretty Natura focused, it's built around Valdain and has effect deal damage to the enemy leader depending on how many trees you've destroyed this match. And of course you're gonna do that using NAM to discount your hand. So yeah, this is probably the most strong when my opponent uses it but feels terrible when I use it deck that I've experienced in this expansion so far, so it's a bit interesting that way, I guess. Anyway, let's look at the decks we're playing for today. So this is the list we're playing for today. It's just slightly adjusted from the tournament winning list that you can find in the game itself. The game plan, as I said before, you use Natura L Machinas to discount a bunch of cards. Then you can get a bunch of trees for cheap, and then using the trees you can fuel Valdain's Shadow Corrosion leader effect, which is at the end of the turn deal X damage to the enemy leader. X is the number of allied trees that have been destroyed this match. You can access NAM earlier than some other decks because you have a lot of ramp, and you make use of that ramp. It also makes your early game a bit slow though, so there's that to watch out for. But yeah, anyway, that's basically how the deck works, so let's look at some games. For our first game here, we're going second against Blood. As usual, you're a pretty slow deck in the early game, so you generally do want to go first because if you go second, your opponent's aggressive plays can become very difficult to manage. So yeah, I mean that's true of this entire format in general. I think you just want to go first all the time, but you can't always go first, so yeah. Ramp is of course useful in the early game, but it's important to remember that unlike future versions of Dragon where you can spend your early game ramping because you have stupid cards like Drazel or Tiamat to just immediately swing the board back in your favor, you don't have any of those. In fact, you are very bad at board clear in this deck, so you have to be careful about spending too much time ramping. So if you're going second especially, you might want to keep some early game cards that you can use to contest the board a bit, like the Wildfire Tyrannosaurus. And also because your deck is built around NAM, you might want to keep cards like we'll see them later on, but you want to keep cards that can increase your hand size, or you can consider it at least. So yeah, it's not just like a blindly just pick all the ramp cards deck like some of the more modern Dragon decks might end up being, so you have to think a bit for the mulligan in that way, I guess. Anyway, for the early game, you want to focus on minimizing the aggressive play from my opponent while trying to draw into our deck to find NAM as well as the cards that can increase our hand size. And of course we want the ramp as well, because the faster we ramp, the more cards we can play. You can see my opponent does have the Mecha Shot Devil, which is not ideal, and we do pick out NAM here, but there's no reason to go for it here right now. I don't even have a Machina card in hand, in fact, to activate NAM, so we're just gonna go ahead and use Valdain here. Ideally you play Valdain off Natura L Machinas instead of using his main body, but in this case I don't really have anything better to do, so we just go ahead and slam the Valdain here. And then we don't play Shadow's Corrosion yet. It's not that much value anyway. We're better off maintaining Valdain at 5 health in case they want to play a Ravening Corruption. We want a Valdain to eat their Ravening Corruption, so we keep Valdain healthy by using the Wildfire Tyrannosaurus to clear the Mecha Shot Devil. Thankfully though, they don't have a Ravening Corruption, so that's good for us. If you at this point want to complain that I only won this game because they didn't have Ravening Corruption, then you can. You're not wrong, but like that's what this meta is. So go ahead and evolve Changeling Cherub here to just pick out a few cards to increase our hand size, get some trees destroyed. We can answer our opponent's board in the meantime. And my opponent will go ahead and drop their Nature L Machinas here. You can always check what your opponent uses, so make sure to keep track, especially the number of monos they have left. So we can see they still have all 3 monos somewhere in their deck, so that's not ideal for us. And at this time we have everything ready, which is just time to use the NAM to draw into our deck. Find out cheap trees. We also want to find healing as well as Iridia Magna, because she's our main source of war, which is very valuable against Machina, because against NAM Blood, because they are quite storm damage reliant. And then since they are out of evil points, we can go ahead and capitalize on that by putting out Rolla to protect this NAM behind a ward, so that we can hopefully finish them the next turn if my opponent fails to clear. My opponent will drop the NAM here. Notably, if you check the log here, hold on, give me a moment. If you check the log here, they actually end up fusing a mono, which is an interesting decision. So I guess their hand must have been pretty bad. And they will drop the Sanguine Core here, but unfortunately for them, I just need to get 5 trees destroyed. Which no, I can't do it this turn, but I mean I can try. I have NAM here, so go ahead and toss this entire hand. None of it is useful, we just want to get trees at this point, so go ahead and use this discounted NAM to draw a new hand. We're at 6 right now, we just need to deal enough damage to finish them. Traveler's Respite here, and then with 2 Lightning Velociraptors, we can go ahead and just get enough trees for lethal, so that's going to be it for this game. A bit lucky of course, but generally you're not winning the going second matchup against this deck if you don't get a bit lucky, so yeah, that's it for this game. Let's move on to the next game, I guess. So next we have a game against Dragon. We're going second, of course. I do like to keep it matches against the top meta decks usually for this kind of videos, especially when I'm showing meta decks as well. This time we're going second, so we're immediately disadvantaged. Hopefully we can out-ramp our opponent or just high roll them more than they can high roll us. My opponent just greeted me, so we go ahead and return the greeting here, and we have nothing to do, so we do pass turn 1. My opponent passes their turn again, so that's good for us because the less cards our opponent plays, the better for us. So go ahead and just pick up the Oracle off the top, so we do ramp with it. My opponent will drop the Dragonic Core. I mean, the emoting is getting a bit annoying, but I think he stops after this one, so we should be fine there. Go ahead and just place these Traveler's Respites. Normally you do want to save Traveler's Respite for once their Valdain effect is active, because the healing is not negligible in the mirror, but in this case we kind of need to improve our hand a bit, so go ahead and convert those into trees we can use to draw. And we do pick up the NAM here, which is very nice. Go ahead and draw, try to find a piece of ramp so we can out-ramp them, I guess. We do have another Wildfire here just to clear the Valdain. Then drops the Changewing Cherub, which is good because it's not the best card they could be playing here. They do ramp with the core though, which is slightly annoying. We go ahead and drop their tree here, and they use the Pteranodon to ramp again. So now they're a bit ahead of us. So we pick up Lightning Velociraptor here, though ideally we want to play Velociraptor after we reach Overflow so that we can get more trees. So we go ahead and do that and just play the Whirlwind Pteranodon to ramp. If they have NAM next turn, I might be a bit screwed, so we just pray that they don't, I guess. And lucky for me, my opponent didn't seem to have NAM, so they just go ahead and drop the Whirlwind Pteranodon to ramp even more. And they will evolve it to clear my Whirlwind Pteranodon here. And they will finally drop their Valdain spell, sorry, that they've been holding in their hand the whole time. They will draw into that deck as well and take a bit of damage here. Again, you would prefer to have Traveler's Respite and healing at this point, but unfortunately I don't really have any. You can consider keeping Changewing Cherub for that reason, but I think it's more important to just find Valdain and get him active as soon as possible, so we can hopefully finish our opponent. At this point we are probably losing the Valdain damage race, so I need to find some damage elsewhere as well, so it's a bit concerning. Lucky though, we do pick up a very good hand here, so we can go ahead and use Valdain and the Dragonic Core, which will allow us to get Shadow's Corrosion active. Use the Pteranodon to destroy a tree here, and then we can hide this behind a ward. Again, Dragon doesn't have very good board clear, so you can take advantage of that by having a very strong board hidden behind a ward, and that should allow me to cheese out some damage without having to fully rely on Valdain's effect. Because if we only rely on Valdain's effect, I'm probably losing this game. Only evolves the Ship's Bane. Thankfully they do miss the Rolla here, so they won't be able to get to my followers behind the ward. So they will have the trade here, and then we just have lethal with our trees, so my opponent just concedes. So that's it for this game. And the last game here will be against Shadow, and we are going second. Shadow seems to be really picking up in popularity recently. when I was trying to record games for this, like probably like 2/3 of my games were either Shadow or Dragon, so I was having a lot of trouble finding games against other decks, so that took me a while. Yeah, we just look for a ramp and we look for cards that can increase our hand size. We can generally use Dragonic Core in this matchup because their early game isn't super fast. I say that but my opponent is kind of popping off here a bit. Thankfully though, we can just drop Rolla as a ward here, which will also clear their followers for me because she gets Bane. We can manage some early aggro that way while we look to make it to the later game so we can ramp. My opponent does clear their own board here, which is good for us. We can just drop the Dragonic Core. We do have to worry about the fact that they can get 10 shadows off this amulet though. My opponent will drop their Mino as well as a Ghoul to draw into their deck more and generate shadows. This looks like it's going to be Hades, so we have to watch out for that. Unfortunately, we don't really have any cards to play here since we want to keep Lightning Velociraptor and Steel Storm Dragonute for after overflow so they can increase our hand size. So we just go ahead and spend some free time evolving and playing Valdain's spell here while we have some free time too, which is fine. My opponent will drop the Shuten Doji to get his effect active, which is pretty good for us because it's a pretty weak turn from them, I guess. Pick up Dragon. This is a misplay. I should have played Dragon Oracle and then like Lightning Velociraptor, Dragonic Core, evolve the Velociraptor. That probably would have been better just for increasing my hand size. But I guess I didn't process drawing the Dragon Oracle off the top of the deck because I was planning my turn before I saw my top deck. We go ahead and ramp here and then we can play the Velociraptor to increase our hand size. Doing it this way does give us more followers on board though, which is pretty good, but no guarantees that the board will survive my opponent's turn. In this case though, it does end up surviving my opponent's turn. In exchange though, they will hit like 30 shadows, so you can probably expect Hades to come down next turn. We'll just go ahead and draw into our deck here, try to find our NAM that we haven't seen yet. Over Pteranodon loses quite a lot of its value once you are already ramped, obviously, so be careful of that. We go ahead and play the Wildfire now while we have time, because once my opponent's Hades is active, they can quite easily get away with not giving us followers on board to use Wildfire on, so go ahead and play it now while we have time. Oh no, I'll go ahead and use their Gramarye as food to heal, which is slightly annoying, and they will draw into their deck as well. And with Gramarye's effect, Legendary Skeleton will fully refund their play points, which will allow them to play their Hades. If they have it. Play Guild here, I guess that's fine, and they do have the Hades, so that will on the Path to Purgatory, which now we will now take 6 damage every turn, which is very annoying. Also prevents us from setting out a board, so that's annoying too. So importantly, we need to heal our range of double Path to Purgatory in case they have a second one, so go ahead and use the Plesiosaurus here to heal too. We'll draw into our deck as well to hopefully find NAM. We got Traveler's Respite, we can use that to heal as well. Then we can go ahead and use the Feral Aether to draw into our deck some more. This will also increase the damage of Valdain's effect as much as possible so that we can try to chip them down. You have to watch out for the fact that the opponent can run Friends Forever, which gives them a spell, which means that they only take 5 damage at most at a single time, which is pretty annoying for us since we are relying on big damage from Valdain's leader effect. There is the spell, which will allow them to protect their face from taking more than 5 damage at a time, which is annoying. Once again here though, we have to heal our range of second Path to Purgatory so that we don't instantly die to it. We can accomplish that with Changewing Cherub, and we can evolve and pick out another Naturan Great Tree. And then the last piece of the puzzle, since they do have Shuten Doji's effect active, is just to put out a ward, which we can accomplish with Iridia Magna. Barring some really strong hands, we should be out of lethal range from this point. So we can hopefully survive one more turn, we can deal some damage to their face with the Power of Shadow's Corrosion, and hopefully next time we can finish them if they don't have another Friends Forever. Thankfully they don't, so they just go ahead and drop their ADs here and we can finish them off with our leader effects. So that's it for this game as well. Oh, they just concede though. So So those are all the games I have for you today. Hopefully if you're interested in this deck, it gave you some idea of how it works, where its strengths and weaknesses may lie. Although it's a bit hard to see its weaknesses, I guess, since the games I use are usually winning games, but the main weakness of this deck is that it has very slow early game. So yeah, it's a pretty strong deck, of course, as you expect from a top meta deck. It's unfortunately has this like habit, it has this like quirk of like being one of those decks where when your opponent uses it, they high roll every time, so it feels super strong. But when you use it, it doesn't feel that strong, so you have that to contend with, I guess. Overall, not really my favorite deck or anything with this expansion, but if you want to climb, this deck can definitely do it. So yeah, that's it for today. See you next time. Bye bye.